Blackwell Epiphany is, bar none, the strongest entry in the series and one hell of a high note to end on. The Blackwell games have always been a good measuring bar for the growth of Wadjet as a studio, each new game showing a willingness to experiment and evolve, finally reaching a point, a sort of apex moment with the last game. It marks the moment that Ben Chandler starts to become a regular fixture in the studio, and it's the end of Dave Gilbert's signature franchise, himself stepping back into producer and voice acting positions from here on. It's a major milestone title that marks a shift to the studio supporting other creators, including members of its own house. As a series finale though, Epiphany is nearly perfect, and while it doesn't quite play with its continuity enough for my taste, the villains of Deception only having a fairly minor role in the proceedings, every single emotional moment is handled without a single misstep. The game takes place a few years after Deception, and Rosa has finally gotten the hang of the medium business, no longer falling over when she brings a ghost into her mind. Her and Joey now do a few odd jobs for Detective Durkin of the NYPD, and after finishing a new Jane Doe case, the two witness a man get gunned down and then watch his ghost get ripped apart by some unknown force. The two end up in a new mystery revolving around a group of 6 people who once took part in a self-help group at a church 2 decades ago, and whatever personal discovery they found there has marked them for complete soul destruction. Rosa and Joey have to save the remaining members and figure out just what's happening to put a stop to it, encountering familiar faces along the way. On top of this, we have a flashback story occurring that shows us the origins of the Countess, and the revelations that follow this and every other in the game completely rewrite the series' mythology and give new meaning to everything we've seen so far. Ben Chandler is back as head artist, and he ends up responsible for the single best-looking game in the Blackwell series, improving on minor issues he had with Deception. Overlooked details like Rosa swinging her arms when she walks now adds a lot of life to the game, and the background work remains incredibly strong. The added snowing effect throughout the game was a great call as well, resulting in a thick, moody atmosphere that really makes great use of the nighttime screens. I'm also a big fan of Rosa's new coat, a strong black that reflects her new mindset and confidence, well earned by now. Ian Shalatfer is also back from Gemini Rue and Blackwell Convergence for his portrait art, and while it's not animated this time, it's so detailed and filled with emotion that it hardly matters. The borders replaced with a fading, slightly transparent background is also a nice touch that fits the game's darker mood. Thomas Rain's score continues on with the styles of the past 2 games, complete with a new emotional version of the main Blackwell theme towards the end. It's what we've come to expect, but perfected even further, which is basically a good way to describe the entire game. This extends to puzzle design, as the series has been moving further and further forward with the investigation theme and making needed changes over time, with this game finally showing them all in full. There's no longer a need to show the same clues in your notes to the same person multiple times to get new information. The mobile phone introduced in past games makes going to your apartment completely unnecessary. Clue combinations are more frequent and more logical, like cross-checking names with a list of customers. Puzzles require Joey and Rosa to separate more often and perform actions away from each other, even more so than in Deception. You can really see how far Wadjet's sense of design has come since the Shiva, simplifying everything just enough to prevent it from being dull, but not so much that you make the game too easy. Just a tip for this one, Rosa's coffee isn't just a for show item, you'll be needing it quite a bit. The game's strongest element, of course, is its story. Epiphany's use of continuity is impressive, managing to tie together stories and plots from all 4 previous games together. While the villains of Deception get the short end of the stick, especially with the resolution to that game's cliffhanger being cut because it didn't really fit with this game's main plot, they still play a vital role that makes the whole story possible. Far more interesting is how the game revisits the Countess's story, and what is revealed says about the medium cycle and those stuck in it, giving a particular character depth I never expected. The pacing is also masterful, starting off with a strong new horrifying scenario, having a solid middle section with 2 really well handled ghost stories, and ending by crossing just about every norm of the series we've known to this point. Gilbert really plays with the mystical elements of the series to the fullest here, and uses it in service to the story and simply for the sake of it. Epiphany is less about finales and more about change and cycles. It returns to the ideas of convergence, relating to how we are all connected in unforeseen ways, giving the audience a glimpse of this by seeing just how all these different parties we've become aware of have crossed over and affected one another's lives. It also shows that things will inevitably change because of the variation in these connections, though some things tend to repeat as people perform the same mistakes others made, drawing a brilliant comparison between the Countess and Lauren. The end of the game isn't so much about endings as it is about showing how we can affect these cycles with our finite existence to change the course of the world, both for better and for worse. Rosa and the true villain become forces of change, both threatening to break the medium cycle, but their answers differ based on their selfish and selfless motivations. It also shows the emotional tolls that come with repetition and change, how it can make us stronger or break us apart. This extends to the second act ghost stories, where sudden life changes the ghosts made for themselves had unforeseen consequences for them and their loved ones. Themes of legacy and identity are replayed once more, seeing one of these ghosts unable to deal with the person they used to be, and another coming to terms with the poisoned legacy they inherited unknowingly. Themes of every single game are brought back up, repeated, and explored fully with some of the best subplots in any of these games, the conclusion to the gym owner's story sticking out as a personal favorite. It's significant that the void the ghosts go into isn't a defined afterlife. It's a symbol of the infinite, all that was, all that is, and all that will be. It's the central element of the entire franchise, and Epiphany fully explains it with a beautiful last line, stating that this is not a story about Rosa, the villain, Lauren, Joey, or anyone else, but a story about everyone. The aim of the game is to turn the Blackwell series into a story about being human. The highs and lows, our connections and the moments those connections sever, how we enter the world and how we leave it. It's the perfect note to end the series on, with a sort of finite, well-structured final act every writer hopes they can be good enough to write. Epiphany is easily one of the best point-and-clicks ever made, and the big reason why you shouldn't skip on the Blackwell series. It takes from the mediums past and present in equal measures, and what it creates is genuinely beautiful, mature, and thoughtful, all while remaining an entertaining character drama. I hope we see more of Gilbert's New York one day, but if Blackwell Epiphany is the last we'll ever see of it, at least it was one hell of a strong note to leave on.